Hey, how's it going? My name's Josh. I am gonna start a new podcast, maybe, I guess. I'm not really sure. I just thought I would start today by just doing one, just recording, if you want to call it a pilot episode or a trailer, a teaser, or some sort of general idea. Just kind of want to get some thoughts out there. I did a podcast, if you guys know me, a little while ago in 2020 called Mix in America. After the death of George Floyd. I am mixed, I'm half black, so there was some things I wanted to say, some conversations I wanted to have. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the conversations I got to have with people, but I feel like I got off my chest what I wanted to, and so I just did 2 seasons of that. I think it's like 20 episodes. I haven't done anything for a little while, but I really just felt like I wanted to give it a try again. Had some conversations with some people, and got some things on my heart and my head that I wanted to kind of get out. So I'm going to give this a try. I don't have a name for it yet. I don't know if I'm going to do any more. I don't know if how often I'm going to do them. If it's going to be a once a week consistent thing, if it's going to be once a month, if it'll be like do 10, stop for a while. I don't know. I'm just kind of doing it. And we're going to kind of see where it goes. What I want to do is just kind of talk about where I'm at, what I'm going through. I don't know, things in my life, things that I'm thinking about. Some things, might not be very deep or spiritual or anything like that. I'll probably talk some sports. I'll probably talk maybe some shoes. I don't know, NASCAR. I don't know, whatever I'm thinking at the time. But today, what I kind of want to start with is just what's going on in my life right now. So I just got back from my church's youth summer camp. So shout out to Hidden Acres down in Dayton, Iowa, Living Word Christian Center. We just had our youth camp down there. My wife and I ran games. It was a lot of fun. It was good. It was a lot of work. I'm tired. You can hear it in my voice probably. If you don't know me, this isn't normally what I sound like. It's usually a little bit better than this, but I was yelling at kids for usually fun stuff, encouragement, but also trying to get their attention out in the field playing games, junior and senior hires. So my voice is a little worse than normal, but I just want to talk about summer camp for a minute because we just got back, and as exhausting as it was, as difficult as it was at times, it was great. Like, it was amazing. It was one of those things that was so exhausting, but like in the best way possible, if that makes sense. It was just so rewarding. Now, like I said, my part was like running games, so it wasn't like this deep spiritual part of the camp. For the most part, it was about having fun. But we also had services at night that I was involved in, and I had different conversations with kids and other like staff members and counselors that were amazing, that were great. And so I just want to talk about summer camp for a little bit. And the first thing I want to say is how important it is to take some time to get away, to unplug and be with God. Vacations are great. I think that's fantastic. But when was the last time you really got away and unplugged, right? Sports fan, I've talked about this before. Every sports team, professional, college, I don't know about high school. I just watched Remember the Titans today, which, side note, don't watch Remember the Titans on a day off, because I got done with that movie and I was like, all right, let's go. Let's do something. And I was all amped up and excited and ready to go. And I had the day off and I'm trying to recover from camp. And I was like, I was tired and didn't do much with all that excitement and energy that I got from that movie. So that's just a side note. I would recommend watching that movie before you were about to, do something great, right? Even if it's just playing sports or prepping for whatever the big thing in your job is. For me, maybe it's preaching on a Sunday or a Wednesday. Watch that movie before that. That'll get you amped. That should get you excited. But for a day off, it didn't do as much. But I was watching that movie, and they take the kids to a training camp, like before school starts. They get on the bus and they go, and they have the whole run through the woods. And, Coach Boone gives this inspirational speech at Gettysburg. And it's, if you haven't seen the movie, you got to go see it. It's a great movie. But it just reminded me about summer camp, where we just were, and how we were so intentional with this time, and it really accelerates things. And especially now, when you have your phone with you at all times, you can check your work emails, you can scroll on social media. There's just so much to entertain you, so many things that distract you, to keep you connected. with the outside world. But when you go to the middle of nowhere, Iowa, where the kids can't bring their phones, even if they did, they probably don't have any reception out there. And they don't have a TV. They don't have, really their own music, their own, some of their friends obviously are there. They're church friends, but there's other friends that maybe worse influences on them that aren't there. They're not with their family unless their siblings at camp with them or their parents at counselor. We had a couple of those. But you really get away and you can block out the noise and be intentional in your pursuit of God. And so many of us Christians want to try to hear God's voice, but there's so many just distractions and other things in the way that it's so hard to hear God clearly. It's not that he's not talking. It's not even that we're not even trying to listen. It's just you got to be intentional when you're trying to hear God's voice, when you're trying to listen. And so I just think camp is just so powerful for that. And there's a reason why the services are so long and so powerful. We worship so hard. If you see my posts, like the kids jumping out up and down, yeah, they're having fun, but they're worshiping Jesus. Like they have their hands lifted, singing, worthy is the Lord, holy is your name. All of these like simple but powerful truths, right? And so I love those services. I love being a part of that. But I also, while I was there, I got something too, right? It's not just about the kids, although it is. And the work I do is for the kids. Honestly, camping is not, we're in cabins and things, but still like, I don't know, the paths aren't paved, so my shoes get dirty. I got to wear like not as good as shoes there. And there's bugs and it's not a big deal, but that's just not my vibe, right? That's not me. But I did get something out of it. And when I was there and I had some kids pray over me, I had some staff members talk to me, like I said, but really what it was I just had this peace in like, this is where you're supposed to be. And to be honest with you, I'm 38 years old, and I think this might be the first time in my life that I knew for sure this is where I'm supposed to be. Not Iowa. I'm not moving to Dayton, Iowa. Not physically, but like as far as my job, my career, the people that are in my life, I feel like in this season, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And like I said, I think it might be the first time ever that I felt that. Now there's been different idea. Like when I went to college, I felt at the time ORU is where I'm supposed to be, but I wasn't really sure. I was 18 years old, going to school, had some challenges there. Different jobs that I've had have been cool. I've lived in different places. It's been good. I really enjoyed San Diego, the weather, obviously, when we were there. And I thought that's where we were supposed to be in that season. But there's always something in the back of your head where you're like, I'm not sure. But this year at camp, I really felt like this is it. This is where you're supposed to be. This job, I work in the youth ministry and the young adult ministry. So I get to preach some, but I also really get to connect with these kids, help lead small groups. I'm going to be doing a lot more like a chaplain type position at Maranatha, the high school that's attached to the church that I actually went to plenty of years ago. But I'll have an opportunity now to speak there more regularly. And then I'm the coordinator for the internship that our church is launching for young adults here coming up, starting this fall. So pretty soon here, I'm going to have 11 to 12, depending on how things shake out here in the next few weeks, young adults that I will be able to influence directly 3 to 4 days a week. And I'm excited for the opportunity. I definitely feel the weight of God is giving me influence over these people and what am I going to do with it, right? So I'm definitely taking it seriously. I'm not going to just, kind of make up stuff and do stuff during the day. But even in that, I've been prepping for that all year. But and I felt like, yeah, I feel good about it. But I wasn't fully convinced that this is where God had me. When Jocelyn and I moved back from California in 2019, obviously there's a lot that happened in 2020 from COVID to my city, Minneapolis, on fire to, I had friend Sivan pass away and others that I lost within those years. And people always ask the question, are you wanting to go back to San Diego? Are you glad you guys moved back home? And my answer was always, well, I know that this is where God has us for this season. And I don't know that I fully believed it myself, but I do now. I believe that that this is where God has me for this season, in this city, at that church, working with those kids. And, one of the things that the challenges is I'm in my own head, one of the challenges is I'm 38 years old and I feel like I'm just kind of getting started in youth ministry. And by this time, most people, I feel like, have moved on from youth ministry, right? They've graduated to like ministering to adults, right? Something like that. If that's what they want to do for a living, if they're trying to be a pastor, they start as a youth pastor, but then work their way up to like pastoring adults and then, maybe having their own church, something like that. So to be 38 and now I'm just kind of entering youth ministry, and all of these kids were born after I graduated high school. I have friends whose kids are in high school or graduated high school, and it just feels like, why so late? Why am I now doing youth ministry? At least that's how it did feel. And I really felt like God told me, one, you needed the experience, you need the life experience. Maybe not everybody needs it as much as others, but I feel like I had a good heart, and I had a lot of maybe head knowledge about the scriptures and things when I was younger. But now I have the life experience. I've been through some things. I know some more have maybe better stories to tell. I don't know. Jocelyn gets bored of my stories because I tell the same things over and over again. But I really do feel like I'm supposed to be here in this season, and I think that's all part of it. But I think the biggest reason is those specific people. There are kids in that youth ministry and now young adults, some of them just graduated or have graduated, that I connect with, that I feel like God put me in their lives in this season for a reason. I had a really good conversation with one of them at camp, who honestly I had to like call up and convince to come to camp. But I was so convinced that I just knew that he needed to be there. And he was like unsure about it, but I could tell that he wanted to be there, and I knew that he needed to be there. And so he just had a great time at camp. And the last night we just had a great conversation about how important it was for him to be there and how life-changing that week was. And I'm just so happy that I got to be a part of it. Like, so glad that God put me in this season for this moment, right? Where I am, where I'm supposed to be. And like I said, maybe for the first time in 38 years, I really feel like very confident that this is where I'm supposed to be. And everything that I did along the way was leading me here. Now, this is not the end, obviously. I don't know what God has for me, right? But for right now, I know this is where I'm supposed to be. And I say that to encourage you, if you're not sure about where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing, if you're unsure, maybe you think God's plan is taking longer than you would like, I just want to encourage you that it's worth it. That it may not seem like you're heading in the right direction, or it may seem like it's taking too long, but read the Bible. There's a ton of stories of people, obviously Abraham and Isaac is one that I think of a lot, where he waited for so long for the promise. And when he tried to do it his own way with Hagar, didn't work out well with Ishmael, right? Isaac was the promised son for him from God, right? That he would build his nation from. And so I want to encourage you in that. It's easier to look back and see Joseph's another one. It's all these ups and downs, these crazy stories. But God had a plan, and God put him in a position to where he could save his entire nation, right? His entire family and their descendants from this famine that was going on in Egypt, even though he was there because he was sold into slavery, right? So, and in prison, and there's a whole lot to that story. But I just want to encourage you in that God might God's plan is different than yours, right? It may not seem like the way you wanted your plan to go, but God's got a plan. And if you just trust him and continue to do that, continue to do what he's asked you to do, then you'll see eventually where you're supposed to be. And I just want to encourage you too, that if you feel like it's taking too long, or you feel like maybe you're like discouraged, that you think you should know better now or have a better idea now, and maybe you're in high school, maybe you're 20, maybe you're in your 30s, but you're not always going to feel like you're in the right spot. God's going to speak to you. There's a peace, there's a knowing for sure, but it's not often in your life that you're like 100% sure this is it. I don't believe so. It definitely wasn't for me. And I don't know how long this season will last like this. I don't know. But yeah, I just at 38 years old, it's the first time that I've really felt that, and I've gotten discouraged. And like I said, I don't think this is like the end all be all, but I feel like I'm in the right place for this season right now, and that's really all we can do, right? Is be where we're supposed to be in this season. So now what? What's next? So I think for me, one of the conversations I like to have about camp is what's next. Now what? What do we do? Because camp is great. It's an amazing experience. But if it's just that week and you had a great week, like, I'm happy for you, but God has more for you. He wants it to truly be life-changing. And I preached a sermon after camp last year, actually. I'm not going to preach the whole thing. You can go back and watch it on my YouTube channel, called After the Miracle. I think it was a series, The New Normal. And I did this sermon After the Miracle, and I used the example of the Vikings and the Minneapolis Miracle and how that was the greatest sports moment of my life. Honestly, if I can be honest, one of the greatest moments in my life. It was amazing. I remember watching in my apartment. It was so much fun. It was amazing. It was fantastic. Such a high point, right? But then after that, the week after that, they got crushed by Philadelphia. And not that I completely who cares about the Miracle, because it was still amazing. But at the end of the day, they lost, and they didn't even get back to the Super Bowl. And I've still never seen the Vikings in a Super Bowl, and in my lifetime. And the Vikings have still never won a Super Bowl in franchise history. And they had a shot to win one at home, be the first team to do it. Right now, Tampa Bay did it a couple of years later. But so I say that to say that, like, what happens next is almost as important as what just happened, good or bad, right? Like, camp may be one of those highs where you're like, that was amazing. It was a great week. I got something from God. It was such a great time in the Lord. Maybe, you didn't go to youth camp, but maybe there's something in your life that you're like, this was a miracle. This was absolutely God-given. This is amazing. One of the high points of your life. If you just go back to normal life and do things the way you did it before that, nothing's going to change. And it's a great memory. And maybe it's, something to encourage you for later when you can look back at it, but it's not the same. And it's not life-changing, right? If you just go back to the way you were. If you get back from camp and continue to just, now you got your phone with you, so you're going to just, keep scrolling 8 hours a day, maybe looking at stuff you shouldn't be looking at, listening to stuff you shouldn't be listening to. If you go right back to that, hanging out with the same people, doing the same stuff, then it's not life-changing. It's just a great week. And you're just missing out on so much more that God has for you, because he wants that to be life-changing. But the same is true with something bad. I mentioned, COVID, George Floyd riots. 2020 started for me losing one of my best friends, Savon Jordan. And shortly after that, I did a video about, how do you respond? Like, what do you do next when something that bad happens? Now, that's an extreme. Hopefully you guys don't have to go through that. Hopefully I don't have to go through it again. Hopefully that's not something we go through very often, but even in the little things, right? I think of the Vikings played their first preseason game. J.J. McCarthy from Michigan got his first snaps. On his first possession, he threw an interception. And it looked rough. You're like, okay, maybe this kid's not ready for it. Well, then he comes back and ends up with a great game, throws 2 touchdowns, just looked every bit the part of the first-round draft pick, future face of the franchise, because he bounced back from that interception, right? So even in the low points, how do you respond to that? And Coach O'Connell said afterward, like, I really want to see that, how he could respond. Obviously, you don't want him to throw interceptions. You don't want to lose games. You don't want bad stuff to happen. You don't want to make mistakes. But when you do, how do you respond? And so he said he was excited to see how, more than he was disappointed in the interception, he felt very good and was very excited about how JJ responded after throwing that interception. And I think what you do after, good or bad, what you do after that means everything. Is so important. You could have the best day in your life, but if you go back to your normal life the way it was, what does it matter? What does it really mean? Or if you have a terrible day, how do you respond? Can you then let it teach you a lesson, maybe help? Can you learn from it? Can you respond? Can you bounce back? Those are the things that you should be looking for. It's not, you want to avoid bad things, but bad things are going to happen. It's one of the few things Jesus promises us. In this life, you will have trouble, right? But then he says, take heart because I have overcome the world, right? Like, you're going to have bad situations. You're going to have tough situations. Things are not going to go well. How do you bounce back from it? The same thing is you're going to have great moments, high moments that really really help you enjoy life. But what do you do after that? How do you respond? How do you continue to build off that versus it just being a one-time thing, right? So now what's next? Now what for me? Like I said, I don't know if I'm ever going to do another one of these again. I don't even know, honestly, if you'll ever see this one, because I might decide that I didn't like it and I won't use it. But I don't have a name for this. I don't have a plan for this. And this is very much not like me. I like to have a plan. I like to have everything set up, ready to go, ducks in a row, everything lined up, a plan, procedures. I like to have all that ready. But for this, I just wanted to do it. And I feel like if you're like me, there's all these things in your life that you might be missing out on because you're waiting till it's perfect to launch it, to start it, to do it. And I think there's value for sure in like planning ahead, preparing, no question. But sometimes you just got to go for it. Sometimes you just got to try it. And I'm okay with adapting along the way. So hopefully if you see this one, hopefully you'll see more of these and they might get better or more interesting, or maybe they'll be, better music or graphics or a cool name. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with trying it and then learning and growing, because a lot of times we just don't try because for different reasons. Maybe we're afraid of failure. Maybe we don't have a full plan yet. Maybe we just don't have the motivation, the correct passion for these things that God has put on our heart. And so we just kind of like wait until we're feeling motivated or ready to go, or like, we're there. I want to share a quote with you guys. I was reading a book for work. My boss was having us read this book, and there's a quote by he's a Harvard professor, I believe. Let me find it for you real quick. Harvard psychologist Jerome Bruner, I don't know, says, "You're more likely to act yourself into feeling than feel yourself into action." Right? So a lot of us wait until we feel like, for me, like it's exercise. Like, I don't feel like working out today. Well, too bad. I need to work out. So I'm going to do that anyways. I don't always. But I'm trying to be better about, once you get in there and start in the gym and start working out, you're more likely to continue and be like, oh yeah, I'm enjoying this. And then consistently as you're in the gym, it's not so bad, right? Because you literally train your body. You literally get more athletic as you do this. So it's not as bad, right? So if you're thinking about doing something, if God's put something on your heart, then do it. Give it a try. See what happens, right? Worst case scenario, I put this thing out, nobody watches it, or I don't know, it doesn't work and I just don't do it. Most likely I'll continue to do it and improve in some way, shape, or form. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not being perfect this first time out. So I want you guys to help me out here. So like I said, I don't even have a name for this yet. I'm not really sure how often I'm going to release it, what I'm going to talk about. Really, there's a lot of things that I could talk about. I have a pretty eclectic personality. I like, NASCAR and Jordans, right? Like I collect jerseys. I collect die-cast cars. I collect pop figures from Marvel movies, and I'm a big Spider-Man fan. There's a lot. Sports are huge for me, right? Basketball, football. There's a lot I could go, but what are you interested in? Is there, obviously, I work for a church. I speak quite a bit about, I wrote a book on, a devotional book. So there's some, religious, spiritual stuff I might get into, but I'm curious on if there's something that you guys, what should I talk about? If there's something you want me to talk about, does anyone have any good name ideas? I'd love that. And don't be mean, but let me know what you think. Like, do you think this was worth your time, or my time, I guess, to do it? Just kind of curious. Just want to see how this goes, see what happens next. And, I don't know, but I hope you guys come along for the ride.